Hi, I'm Christine Rasmussen here in my Los Angeles studio with a new commission. Paintings are always better seen in person, but since we can't really do that right now, I wanted to give you a little tour of this new painting. Back in the fall, some of my collectors from New York reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in taking a source photograph that they had and blowing it up into this large format style painting. It's a photograph of a place that has sentimental value to them but no longer exists. So it has this element of memory in it. Obviously it has a reflection and it has both architecture and sky. So it has a lot of elements that I work with in my paintings. Have architecture with a floating fabric that represents the human form, and it's always in motion, and this figure is in motion, so I actually thought it was a nice reference to some of the paintings that I do anyway. I was really honored that they thought of me for the piece, and so I was excited to do it, and they said that I could do it in my style, to the point where they said that I didn't even have to do the figure, since I normally don't do figures in my paintings. But actually, one of the things I liked about this composition is how you get this bright orange in the surfboard, and it's reflected. I was thinking a lot about color in this painting, so a lot about complementary colors. So like I mentioned, the orange, and that's complementary to the blue, which is, I have several different types of blue throughout the painting for the real sky, the reflected sky, and then of course the road going through. In the building, a lot of the complementary colors are between the sort of purples and pinks of the building, and then the shadows, that some of which are green. Going into the greens, so I use a lot of different kinds of greens in the foliage and built up the foliage, and even went in and did individual leaves to make it more three-dimensional. And pretty happy with how that came out, get the different types of foliage in terms of the bushes and then the wispy sort of tall grass types as well. I also mix all of my own blacks, so even for the windows, these on the right hand side are actually more of a blue based, and then as you move left it becomes more of a purple base, because of the way the light is hitting the building and the sunset gets stronger. Even in the wetsuit, which is the blackest part, I didn't use black out of a tube. I never do that because it kind of sits on the surface. So when mixing my own, I bring in the other colors, and then it actually pulls your eye in. It adds like a richness to the painting. On the other side, for the highlights, especially here in the sign, which is probably the brightest part, even though it looks white, I actually put some yellow in it because that pops it out more. And then there's just kind of favorite moments. So of course I loved doing the reflection. Part of it I turned the canvas upside down and then I put it back right side up. And I also really liked how it gets broken up by these plants down in here. So some of these are growing up, and then there's the reflection of them. And then you also have these little lights, so you get these little bits of the reflected light, including down here. I liked this with a little bit of pink that's in the circle of that light. I've never been to this place before, but in spending several months working on this painting, I got to really imagine this really specific place, and in a way kind of travel in my head. While I was painting this, I assumed that the surfer was going back to his motel room coming out of the ocean, but it turns out the ocean is just a couple steps off the side of the canvas there, so he's actually on his way out to the water, just steps away. And that kind of, again, gives you this sense of adventure. So I hope you learned something from this video that you might not have seen if you had just looked at the photograph of the finished product.